Hi, this is Denise Matthew. I hope you're doing well. I'm back again for another week of the transits. We're continuing on with the mandala of life. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It has really been an interesting journey. I also am still doing the updates on the community tab, but I also wanted to mention that I'm on Instagram as well doing the updates. So if you want to, if that's easier for you, I'll leave the link below. And other than that, we've got a few things happening, so I'll just get into it and let's go with that. So today we're having a full moon, and a full moon is always going to be some level of culmination, which means that it's a culminating period. It is a Virgo full moon, so it means that it's happening. The moon is in Virgo at this particular point. And when we talk about a full moon, we're talking about it being the closing, sort of ending cycle of something that began when the new moon came in Virgo. The new moon came in Virgo on September 17th, 2020. And I believe that was in the gate 6, which is all about the family and protecting your family. It's a tribal energy. It connects to the 59. So it's that whole channel of protecting the people that matter to you, that type of what we do to survive. It could be this level of going to the extremes to protect your family type of thing, that type of energy. So now we get to the full moon today. We're talking about the 3740, which is the channel of the family, the channel of tradition, the channel that is all about keeping the family together, making deals and things that will bring resources to the tribe, to the family. So what it feels like is that we started in it felt like there was some kind of a family thing that was happening back in September. And then I feel like it's sort of closing up this energy, as in, my feeling is that it's related to, I think, more opening up things. I think more of this idea that we're going to start having less limitations and moving into energy of being a family, being with the traditional, sitting around the table more. That's a feeling I get, that this will be sort of something that's going to happen with this full moon, kind of showing that that cycle has ended of this separation. Because if we think about it, we had just the gate 6 was just a half a channel, and now we have a full channel. So it makes it feel like it's more of a balanced energy. So maybe we will have more family time. Maybe we will be able to get together with the people who we consider our family. And family is considered anybody who's your family. It doesn't have to be anybody that it doesn't have to be anything by birth. It's basically who you actually feel are your family, who resonate the most with you. So I believe it's a good energy. And I also say we also have to remember that there is some level of emotional energy in this, because it is the whole channel 3740, which is a willpower to the solar plexus, which is always going to have some level of an emotional wave in it. And that's all about providing the resources and also having the deals. And so this is where there could be some emotions about maybe someone broke a promise to you, or someone said they were going to do something and they didn't do it. So this could be one of those times where the emotions are running high because people are not holding up their end of the bargains, or people are feeling happy because people are actually holding up their ends of the bargains. Again, this is a time where we could potentially be making deals with people, but always to remember that with this energy, we want to make sure that instead of just imagining that we made the deal in our head, which can sometimes happen, especially when this is electromagnetic, or this thing where you have half a channel each, like in a partnership or in a relationship of any kind. So for instance, if you have the gate 37 and your best friend has a gate 40, this idea of not actually articulating the promises that you're making to each other can sometimes be a case. So it's really important in this case to always have that level of communication. So starting new ending promises, ending agreements or things like that. So maybe there was a business deal that's come to an end, a conclusion, some sort of a deal that's concluding at this particular moment. Okay, so let's get into the rest of the transits. So right now we know that the sun is remaining in the gate 37, as I just said. And so the thing about this is that we have a couple more days of this. This can be really emotional energy for anybody who carries the gate 37 or the 40 or even the whole channel. Because what happens is there's a lot of the energy that talks about family and the hurts and the wounds and the things that maybe didn't go well when we were in our family. So we could have those memories kind of happening where we're starting to bring up those old hurts. But it's always nice to do this, because when we do look at these things that have bothered us in the past and troubled us and made us feel unhappy with how things were going, it's always nice to remember that we can actually heal from that. We can actually turn that into something else. And I think that if there's anything that human design has taught me, it's that this idea that if you actually look at a chart of somebody who feels like they've wronged you, or they actually have wronged you, or something like that, you've had a dynamic that hasn't really worked well with you. If you in fact look at their charts and look at the way they interact with yours, a lot of times you'll see that there is just this interaction between you that is almost alchemical, and it's there. And so once you start to recognize that, then it's easier for you to, well, it was easier for me to start to heal those things that maybe I looked at people and said, oh well, they didn't hold up their deal, they didn't do what they promised to do, and those types of things. So it's a really nice thing to start to look at those energies to finish up, because we are culminating and finishing up at this particular moment. Now, this is of course the sweet side, but we always will have the earth, because it's an opposition in the other side, because this is one of the three oppositions, the 4323, the 3420, and also the 3740. They always come at the same time. So you always have the sun in one and the earth in the other, or the earth in one and the sun in the other. So they always come as a full channel, which means that this is energy that is going to be emotional in this particular case. So this is, again, a time where you could emotionally be connecting to the past, emotionally be connecting to people in this present moment that maybe aren't holding up their deal, that aren't doing what they promised to do. And this is where we step in and say, okay, if this is not working, how can we fix this? How can we start to look at where this all happens? This is also a time where we can start to feel like we really want to be part of something. We feel like maybe we don't have enough community, or we don't feel like there's that level of connection that we're used to. And so that could be kind of rumbling in the ethers as well. But again, the most important thing to remember is that I believe that this is coming to a close, that we will start to connect more. And I think that, if we look at just what's happening in the world, things are shifting, and I feel like the tides have changed and are changing. And again, it's something that's going to recede slowly. It's not something that's going to be overnight. March 2nd, we're going into the gate 63, and this is all about doubt. Now, this is the first collective energy that we're coming into that's all about the collective logic. So what that means is that so for instance, if you look at this image, we have this person and she's looking out and she sees a sun and she sees what looks like a moon, which isn't something that is in the pattern of life. We know that that's not a pattern for our life. And so she's got doubt. What happened? Why do I see these two, the sun and the moon at the same time? I mean, it's not an eclipse, because if it were, it would look different. So she's looking at this and she sees that there's some level of the pattern that's changed. And what does that mean? Well, it means that there's some mutation in the pattern. The thing about the pattern is that we as a society, as a civilization, are all sort of hooked into the patterns. We want the patterns to do what they're meant to do. This is all about when you take a bus, or you take you go to a supermarket. The supermarket has hours that they're open and hours that they're closed, but the expectation is that if you want to go and buy some apples in the morning, you can go to the supermarket, you can buy your apples. Or if it's an outdoor market or some place where you buy food, you can go there and get it. But what can happen is sometimes what will happen is something catastrophic would happen. So maybe you have a weather event and it wipes out the supermarket, so you don't have that supermarket anymore. And so that would be something that would completely shatter the pattern. And what happens is it leads to some level of feeling like you're in chaos. There's always going to be a question in the doubt, which means there's a searching for what's wrong, how can we fix it, those types of things. So there is this level of conservative energy. There is this level of wanting things to go a certain way. So that's where we have to start to look at the doubt as, okay, am I doubting something that's logical to doubt because this is logical energy, or am I just doubting anything in particular? This can be turned inward. This could be self-doubt. This could be doubting other people. This could be doubting your loved ones, saying, oh, I don't think you can do this well enough. So when it gets to that point, then we see the shadow side of it, where it's not actually helping out. In its highest form, this is all about asking really great questions and finding these really motivating and far-reaching answers. So Ra Uru said that when the sun, and he said especially when the sun and Mercury, which would be a conjunction, transit the gate 63, he said those are the best times to actually to have these really amazing questions being asked that you'll ask or somebody else will ask you, and it will just kind of set you on a new revolution of finding some interesting and really far-reaching new patterns of how you can predict in the future. Because the thing about this is all about predicting in the future. When we talk about predicting, we're not talking about sort of a psychic prediction or anything like that. That's another type of category that we could talk about. That's like a level of intuition. We're talking about the prediction of, like I said, the grocery store or the supermarket will be open and you'll be able to buy what you want to buy, that schools will be open and your kids will go to school, that the trains will be running and you'll get a train to work. Those are the predicted things that we expect. And when they have issue, then we can get anxiety about this. So this could be doubting the infrastructure. So if we're looking at the week with the sun in the gate 63, we could say, are people doubting the infrastructure? Are people doubting the way things are going, that the pattern isn't correct? There's a mutation, an irregularity that needs to be sort of looked at and fixed potentially. The other concept is that they're looking at the pattern and they're challenging it and saying, okay, so this is what we're always doing. How can we fix the pattern so that it's actually working better? This is not abstract energy, which is what we've already done, the collective abstract energy. So abstract is like you start something and you just kind of, you could say kind of winging it, as opposed to with the gate 63, it's all about the experiment. You have all the processes you go to actually get something to happen. And you have sort of an expected way of looking at life and how it will all sort of show up. And when it doesn't, then that's when there could be some level of anxiety with this energy. Logic is what rules the world. Logic is what everybody believes in. And so we do put more emphasis on the validity of logic because we can repeat it, and we can look at it and say, yes, we have a lot of confidence that this is going to happen. But having said that, we also have this idea that sometimes things just happen out of nowhere, and we have the synchronicities of life, and that can be discounted when we have a lot of logic. So again, if we can find a balance to know that there are things that we can't explain, and then there are things that we can explain. So the things we can explain are the logic, the gate 63 and that whole the gate 63-4, and also the 48-16 and the 15-5, those types of things. They're all about the logical things and patterns that we can, and in the 1858, they're all about the things that we can actually know that are going to happen. And then we go to the abstract, or even sometimes individual, again, not something that we can predict, and people can get fearful of that, which in fact you shouldn't, because there's a balance in everything, right? We have a balance in everything, and that's what makes the world go round. So if we look at the Earth, and the Earth is now in the gate 40. And again, I talked about that quite a bit last week. Ultimately, just the whole thing about wanting to be alone. The thing about the gate 40 is, the one thing you want to remember is that you need to, if you carry this energy especially, and if you would have the sun interacting with this energy, it's all about making sure that you're not giving too much of yourself and you're saving what you need for yourself, because there's a tendency to just want to give too much. And then you have issue where you don't save much for yourself. So basically driving around with an empty gas tank. On March 2nd, we're going to the gate 64. Now the gate 64 and the gate 63 are basically cycling at the same time. So we have the gate 64 this is the cycle for the abstract collective energy. And then the other one, the gate 63, is for the logical collective energy. And when we talk about collective energy, we're always talking about something that's shared. We're talking about the world as a whole. The tribe is the people that you know, the people that matter in your life. And the individual is something that's a purest expression of yourself. The individual is also a concept of, in this present moment, this is what is happening. And that's where there's more of a connection with the present moment. The collective energy is always about the past, predicting the future for the patterns with logic, and recollections and memories, predicting some way that you can change something in the future as well. But you're always looking in the past when you're talking about the abstract. When we talk about the tribal, it's all about resources. We talk about the collective, it's all about sharing. And we talk about the individual, we're talking about some level of creativity or an expression of the individual, and present is being in the present moment. So when we look at the gate 64, we're looking at this level of having confusion. So this is a confusion before you have some level of breakthrough. The story with this is there's like big downloads of information, and there's no logic to this information. Where we have the gate 63, it's all about this pattern, this logic, and this idea that you sort of have some, I guess you could say, like a guideline to go along with it. The gate 64 doesn't have that. So you have this big download of information, and then it would connect with the gate 47, which kind of dissects it and says, okay, this is important, and kind of sifts out where the gold nuggets are, as opposed to, basically say you were panning for gold, you would just keep panning, and eventually you'd only have the gold nuggets. And that's what the gate 47 would do with the gate 64. So what happens is you have these big ideas, these big downloads, things you want to do, and eventually, and it's just like, it's so expansive that you don't even know how to even start to think about making it happen. And eventually what happens is, like I said, the gate 47 comes in and it starts to dissect it and say, okay, well, let's pull this apart and see how we can actually make this happen. So this week we have confusion and doubt. So kind of interesting energies to be looking at. So let's see how it goes. Now, when we look at the gate 64, we're talking about the visual. When we're talking about the gate 63 as well, another visual learners, anybody who has this kind of energy, you're more visually adapted to seeing things. When you have individual energy, the tendency is more to be more acoustic or listening, or you like to listen. So, and if you have a combination of this energy, which a lot of people will have, there could be different ways that you learn, and it all works perfectly well for you. So something to think about. Let's see how this works. Are we going to be confused? Are we going to get some huge ideas that we really want to do? And, big downloads of information that kind of just comes out of nowhere and makes you want to work on it. And the frustration can be that you don't actually have the ability to make it, pull it into form yet. So understand that you could be getting this big download, but the thing about it is to know that it will take time for that confusion to actually clear away, and you can start to look at what's going on. Mercury is direct now, still gaining a little speed, not quite at its speed yet, and we're looking at it in the gate 19. It's been in the gate 19 for a little while, and it's going to move into the gate 13 on February 28th. It will join Jupiter at that particular point. So we know that we'd already know that Mercury's been in the gate 19. Could be talking about, which I've actually seen a lot of this, is talking about animals and how they're cared for and how they're not cared for. It could be talking about, if we look at anything where there is some level of, I guess you could say, oppression, you could hear more about that happening with this energy. And that's sort of, I've seen a lot of this happening as we've been going on with the last little while with Mercury being here. Then on February 28th, we have, like I said, Mercury going in to the gate 13, and it will meet Jupiter in the gate 13. And this is a communication of the secrets that Jupiter has been stirring up. So we had a big release of a secret, for instance, just a couple days ago, and it was about a very high profile murder case, and it was happened about 3 years ago. It was about a prince, and there was a murder case that he ordered the murder, and literally that just came out and said, yeah, he did, because everybody sort of thought that this had happened, but now there was some intel that came out and said that this was actually a real thing that happened. So this was a massive secret that was released. Jupiter kind of has been in there and starting to release the big secrets, and let's see how many more big secrets we're going to see happening, especially with Mercury, because we get into Mercury and then we're really getting this communication of these secrets and saying, okay, we're going to blow the lid off all this information that has been under under wraps, and let's let everybody know, especially with Mercury. So that's going to be there for a little while, and again, it'll be going there tomorrow. So let's see how that looks in the wide world and how things are going. And Jupiter remains in the gate 13, as I said. So we'll be releasing all these secrets as they go along. Now Venus is in the gate 55, and I did a whole video on the gate 55 and this idea of this melancholy and the abundance. So it really is about just understanding that everybody who has an individual energy is going to have some level of this potential for melancholy, and in order for you to work with that energy instead of it sort of working you over, it's all about directing your creativity into something that you love doing, whatever that is. On March 2nd, we have Venus going into the 37, which we know all about. Basically, we're talking about this connection, tradition, where we could see more women coming out with traditional things that they're doing, or some level of making deals. You could see some women making big power deals. We could see this idea of something beautiful, some beautiful traditions, some beautiful family moments, some things that are happening that are making you feel happy. And when we think about this, another thing that we can talk to about the gate 37 is this idea of equality. This is a theme that Richard Rudd talks about with the 37th gene key, and it is all about this idea of equality for all. Now, when we talk about Venus going through the gate 37, we could see that more of this idea of women wanting some level of equality, because that is a Venusian energy. So maybe we could hear about this, some things happening with equal rights for women. And because the one thing that was said with the pandemic, as it was, a lot of women gave up the workforce. A lot of women didn't go to work anymore because of the pandemic, or those types of things. And so that equality that maybe was a little bit stronger before it has changed considerably. So now maybe there's going to be a talk about how they can get more of that equality back, potentially. Mars is now in the gate 8, and we know that this is an individual energy. This is about a creative expression. This is about this need to sort of express yourself in a very creative way, but this comes with some level of leadership. So it's not just an expression of your own creativity, it's an expression of your creativity with this feeling that people will potentially follow you, to watch what you're actually doing, because you are giving something to them in a very mutative and individual way that they can sort of hook on to. So we're talking about something that is an individual leadership style that people follow just because they like what you're doing. And it's not like you're actively trying to get people to follow you. It's just something that is actually happening because people are inspired by what you do. When you look at the gate 8 in Mars, we're talking about probably more of a Martian energy, or and it's sort of you could look at perhaps somebody who has more of those Martian energies, or more of an aggressive or assertive, somebody who is telling you, I can do this, I've got it covered up, that type of thing. So very assertive and in forward motion, somebody who is not afraid to step forward, somebody who can get impatient if things are not going well. So that's the type of energy that people could be looking at and saying, yes, this person has something that I value. So that could be that we're valuing the input, or the valuing those Martian ideas of people just getting out there and doing their own thing and changing the world because of it. March 4th, we're getting into the gate 20, which is the gate of now. And that's where Mars is going to there. Now, the thing about the gate 20 is this is considered one of the only existential gates of the human design body graph. So when we talk about existential, we're talking about in the now. And so when we see in the now, that kind of sums it up quite succinctly about exactly what this energy is all about. This is all about being in the present moment. So if we look at this image, we see that this person is looking at an hourglass and just watching the time. So in that moment, they're watching that hourglass, which is that present moment. And if you look up to the right, it's a tunnel. So that's the future. And then there's sort of a darkness, and the path, that's the past. So this person is sitting right in the middle. This is about potentially not being able to be in the now, always trying to be going forward because of Mars, and because Mars is about this impatience and let's get this done and let's move ahead. So can we look at this as potentially missing something that's really important right now in this present moment, and not being able to see the benefits that are potentially there because we're too hurried to get to the next level, to get to the next part of this. The other perspective that we could see with this is we do have some level of charisma. So we could have these Martian people who, again, are coming out, who have a lot of charisma, but they're showing those real Mars-like energies. They're showing this kind of, I can do it, this kind of, I'll take the helm, whether you want me to or not. Those are the kind of things. This could be about this idea of fighting for what belongs to you, or fighting for what you want. So this charisma of these types of people who are just saying, we're not going to take this, we're just going to go and do our thing, and that type of thing. And people could be sort of drawn to that and looking at that type of thing. Or we could see people like that coming up into prominence that we can see. We could also look at this as the idea that it's all about unity and unifying. So are we aggressively trying to come together so we could say that there's been a lot of division in the last little while, like a year at least or more. And there's been a lot of division and a lot of people sort of, right now we're looking at a lot of racism, unfortunately. And just picking people out and saying, well, because of this and this, I'm going to assume this about you, and I'm, whatever, as we all know how racism works. This could be aggressively saying we need to come together and stop beating people up and trying to vilify somebody just because a certain way they look. So that could be the thing. Or this other idea is coming together to unify, to act aggressively, to move against not necessarily people, but in a non-unified way, because everything has a duality. So these are the kinds of things that we could see instead of, and like I said, this is something that could push you to get away from this moment in your life and to want to go into the future so aggressively that you're willing to grab at pretty much anything you can to get there. And see, that's where we can have issues, where we grab onto things that are not necessarily at our best, especially if you're emotionally defined, where you need some more time to figure these things out. So again, this is all about this idea of allowing this moment to be what it is, and to look at it as it is in its entirety. Even if you don't like what you see, you can always make plans for the future. But in this very moment, what do you see in your life? And there's always something that there's always something that we can find that matters and that's important in this moment. A lot of times we just don't see it. A lot of times, like I said, when we're talking about we have these goals, dreams, and aspirations, and we don't care about where we're at right now. We only care about where we're in the future. And it just becomes a problem because you never really appreciate this particular moment. You sit down, like I have one son who's always ahead of it in this respect. So anytime we would go on a vacation or something, he'd go, how many days until we go home? So he was already in the future. He was already to another place and not enjoying where he was because he was too busy trying to be at the next juncture of life. And so in this thing, aggressively pushing forward to the next part, you might miss some really some things that you'll be sorry that you did miss if you're too convicted on getting ahead. So that's something to keep in mind. And as I said, Jupiter remains in the gate 13, all about secrets. Okay, so when we get to the line 4, the line 4 is all about the same stories being repeated over and over again. So we could hear these same stories. expanded the same things over and over and over again. When we get to line 5, we're talking about this feeling that there could be a projection that people just want to tell their stories. People, you could say that people are bursting at the seams to allow whatever they've been holding inside out. And so this could be a time where people are just like letting it all out. They're saying all the stories, they're telling all the stories. We could see that this could be out in the real world. When we move to the 5th line, we could see that people are maybe have been having a lot of secrets for a very long time, and suddenly we hear about these things that happened in the past that they just had to get out. They just had to sort of let it out of their system rather than let it kind of eat away at them any longer. So these are the kinds of things that we could see. And again, with Mercury coming in with Jupiter, that could make it more like media, things like that, because we talk about Mercury, it's just more a public viewing of these particular types of secrets. So I'll be interested to see how these two line up and how it shows up in the real world. So Saturn is in the line 1 and 2. We know that it just shifted out of the gate 41 not too long ago. So now we're getting into some new energy with Saturn. We're talking about the sensitivity. When we talk about Saturn, we do talk about structures. We do talk about infrastructure. We do talk about things that are slow and just changes coming slow. Like, not really, things are not fast with Saturn. You need all the paperwork. You need all the plans before you start to build any new infrastructure or anything. Saturn is looking at this idea of building a foundation with the line 1. And this is all, again, this is a tribal. So we're talking about the tribal energy. We're talking about how are we going to support the people? How are we going to support the needs of the people? Because this is the support for the revolution. So we're saying, how can we support these people to get what they need? There was a new bill that just came out not too long ago, and it's some big a monetary stimulus that's going to happen for the US that's all about helping the people. So these could be ways that we're slowly seeing that trickle of energy coming out to say, okay, we have to help the people. They have been suffering, and if the people are not supported, then that's when the revolution can happen. So this is taking care of the needs of the people, and we're talking about sensitivity. We're always talking about this idea of connecting with other people, connecting with what people need. So this is, with the Saturn part of it, connecting with the idea that there's limitations, connecting with the idea that people are tired of the limitations. How can we fix that? How can we move forward in that? How can we make it better? Because it's been in a specific area for a very long time. So we are moving out of the limitation of, limitation of the gate 60, which we did have for a long time. And we finally moved into new energy with the gate 41. Now we're looking at the tribe and starting to take care of the people. How can we take care of the people? How can we have better infrastructure for the people, better support for the people, as well as animals too? There could be some new things happening with animals and how animal control and how you're allowed to treat animals and that type of thing. We also have the nodes remaining in the gate 35 and also the 5. We talked a lot about that last week. The 35 is this progress and really about the experience of the important experiences in our life, and remembering that the journey is just as important as the destination. And then we also looked at the gate 5, and this is patience or not patience. And that's this energy that we're sort of pulling away from. This is logic, which I talked about. So it is this logical routines that we like, that everything is a certain way. And so now we're looking at maybe being pushing more to the collective abstract, which is more about, let's start something new and see how it goes as we're moving along. And right now it's the line 5. So this would be, you could say, the most exemplified version of this energy. So in the 5th line of the gate 5, we're talking about keeping calm despite a changing playing field. So this is the highest version of this energy. So even though things are changing, even though the fabric of what we have learned to what we have considered what we expect every day, like, this is logic, this is patterns, keeping calm despite the patterns changing, despite things changing, because there are changes happening. We do know that. We see that happening. People call it the big reset of 2020 and that type of thing. And let's see, we don't know how it's all going to unfold. We don't know how restaurants are going to unfold. We don't know how organized sports, those types of things. I mean, these are entertainment things, yes, but they're also important for us because we need to have those moments where we can unhook from our realities and go somewhere else. And so those are important to us. And so it really is about having patience and this understanding and calm despite the changing playing field, which is can be very difficult for the energy of the gate 5, because there is this need to have these because there is this need to have these routines. And the gate 35 in the 5th line is all about altruism. So we're talking about the collective energy. We know this is all about collective energy, and it's moving away from this idea of the individual into the group. What can we do for the group? What are the experiences that we can bring? What can we take from the past? Where are the recollections and the memories, and looking to history to change our experiences, to change the things we need to change, to bring something new and based on the old into this, these new experiences of what we're going to have, the new things, and progress. Again, working to something new, a new experience, and wanting something different for your life. And that's what a lot of us are drawn to. That's a lot of us are driven by, to find something new, to find something different. And this is what this is all talking about. But again, this is there's the focus with this feels like it's more about the collective as opposed to the individual. So instead of improving one person's life, are we improving more people, their existence, type of thing. So those kind of things could be potential. On March 2nd, Uranus is finally moving into the gate 24. And this is the gate 24. It's all about, we're moving from tribal energy to individual energy. The gate 24 line 1 is, okay, so we have Uranus, which is all about rebellion, changes, new and innovative things, the internet, things that haven't been done before, pushing against the system because you had enough, wanting change at any cost. When we move to the gate 24, this is about, it is half of the channel, the 6124. So that means that because Pluto is in the gate 61 and has been for a while, we're having a defined channel, which can bring some level of balance with this energy, so it flows a little bit better. With just the gate 61, we have that pressure, but we don't have this ability to release the pressure. I always liken the energy when we have the head gates defined and we don't have any ajna connection, that it could be almost like you have a gumball in a machine and it's stuck and it just can't come out because there's no way to get it out. It's like there's no little pocket where you get your gumball, or if it's a vending machine, there's no window where you can get that food from the vending machine because there's no connection. But when you get the connection, then you can allow those things that are circling your head, the thoughts, the unknowables, to start to move into the next part about, where am I going to go with this, and how is it going to change my life? This is individual energy, so we know that it can come with some level of melancholy, the whole 6124 energy. So that could be part of this energy. This is acoustic energy, so in other words, we could be more connected to anything that we can hear as opposed to visually. I'm not saying that you're not going to be visually inspired as well, but when you have a lot of individual energy, you could be more acoustically inspired, or music, or the spoken word, or anything like that. So when we talk about the gate 24 it's going to be in the line 1. The thing about this is that you want to have something brand new, something that nobody's done before. And the only thing with this is that you're wondering, has anybody else done this? Am I the first one to do it? And then you start to do something that you think is sort of innovative and new, especially with Uranus pushing you to actually get something out there, to get something brand new, innovative, something that you've never been seen before. But then you start to think, well, did somebody already do this? And then it stops your creative process. So the energy here is saying, instead of returning, going back over and over and over again and saying, is this new? Is this innovative? Is this new? Is this something that I have created my own way, my own self? Instead of stopping your flow, allow yourself to create what you want to create. And then if you really need to check, if it has already been done or something like that, you can always do that afterwards. But what you do is, if you keep going back over, has it been done before? Has somebody else done this? Am I copying them off their, their inspiration? Well, you're going to stymie your creativity. Instead of backtracking and questioning whether it truly is innovative, get through, do the thing, And then you can always research afterwards. Otherwise, you're going to stop your process and you're going to lose that thought. And maybe it is the most innovative thing in the world, and maybe nobody else actually has done it, but you'll never know unless you let the process continue on and move through. So we could see that there's going to be more inventions as long as people can push through that idea that maybe it's been done before. My belief is that we have all these amazing ideas that are always floating in the ethers, and it's whoever gets it first, it's whoever decides to do this idea to make this into something real. They're the ones that win the pot. Alexander Graham Bell and Marconi, two different sides of the world doing the same thing, doing it their own version of it. So this is saying if there's that spark of innovation that's floating around, grab hold of it, use it, do whatever you need to do, and you're not copying anybody. You're being inspired, and allow it to flow the way it's meant to. Neptune remains in gate 22. Not much more to say. I talked a lot about creativity. And just basically the keywords are here. So we know that it's not going to move until March 14th. And when it does do that, I will 100% start talk about the changing energy and what's happening. The one thing about Neptune is most of this energy is always going to be some level of being veiled. So remember that you may not exactly know what's showing up with this creative energy. So in other words, if you are doing something creative, if you are testing yourself, maybe you don't have an idea how to do it, but then you just get into the flow of it. And before you know it, you're actually doing something that you hadn't expected you would be able to do before. Pluto is in the gate 61, and we talked about, basically Pluto, like I said, it's always going to change the gate that it transits, because it's such a slow moving planet that when it goes through, it does this whole transformation of the gate energy. And so we'll see how that's going to show up as time goes on. March 16th, we are going to have it finally moving into the gate 60, and that's the limitation. So it's going to be some transformation of the limitation of the gate 60. And when it does, we will definitely talk about it. It's not very long. So things are moving, things are shaking, and the world is shifting. And Chiron remains in the line 4. And again, this is the foundation for the opinions and those types of things. Another long-winded week of the transits. I hope that you enjoyed them. And if you haven't joined the Mandala of Life experiment, please do. I am finding a lot of information as I go, and I'm trying to pass as much of that information on to you guys, because that's what I like to do. I wish you a good week, and I will see you again next week. Take care. Bye for now.